Position 6118 north, 4520 west. We are 2 crew, 2 pucks, and endurance is 2 hours and 35 minutes.
Roger, Oscar India Romeo, and runway use 06, wind 100 magnetic 18 knots, QNH 1008, temperature 12, time 08.5.
In this part of the response project, we are investigating the inland regions under the ice cap. It's an extremely interesting region to look at because it's hardly been investigated simply because it's so difficult to get to. When we set out in the project, it was basically to find out what's up there. I mean, just start from scratch, and we started from the edge of the ice cap, and then we've been moving across the landscape to try and figure out, is there anything, and what's there, and who's there, and when, and how many. We are in Narsarsuaq, the main airport and gateway to South Greenland when you come from abroad. Today, not a lot of people are using the mountain hinterland, so even the sheep farmers that are farming around the fjord and use the mountains for grazing, they won't go up there because it's too difficult to go and get animals back. And because the caribou disappeared from South Greenland around 1800, there is not a lot of local law or narratives about the hinterland either. So they don't know a lot about the landscapes or the features up there, and we're hoping we can give that knowledge back now with this project. When we came up to the site this year, we were 4 people. We split up into 2 teams, where one team excavated or opened and excavated 2 test units. So one inside one of the features and one outside to get different impressions of what was going on. And at the same time we had the field survey or the field walking, which consists of another team of 2 persons. And since we've been working in this landscape for some years now, we've also sort of gotten into the minds of the past people, and we start to just follow the landscape and the routes. And often you will find that the routes that are the easiest to pass through and the most even and least stony is of course where the caribou would have moved. And where the caribou moved, the people moved. And where the people moved, the archaeologists now moved. So we just follow each other in a chain, and then the sites will turn up in places where it's sheltered, where there's a good lookout over, you can see the caribou coming in. So we start to look for those landscape features that are good for the hunting. When we came in this year, we are early. The lake was still frozen over and there was a lot of snow around. So as you're moving across the landscape, you come to this oblong valley which has a lake in the middle. In the middle of that lake, there is a narrow land bridge that connects the 2 sides of the lake. So it's essentially a natural funnel in the landscape. And as we move along the shore of this lake, you come upon this amazing site where you first see one massive feature with stone-built houses in several phases. As you look across the scree with the stones, then you suddenly realize, well, there's features all over the place. And then when you look at your feet, there's hundreds and hundreds of caribou bones lying scattered around it. So it's amazing just to see this activity popping out immediately when you reach the site, and you go, wow, this is something big. We don't normally see that kind of archaeology up here in the mountains. We are facing a major climate crisis in Greenland. Things are changing very quickly. It's not only getting warmer, it's getting wetter, it's getting greener. So it means a lot of archaeology is potentially disappearing. So we know how things that are down by the coast or the lower altitudes are rapidly disappearing or have already gone over the last 50 years when we talk about organic artifacts. So we were actually hoping also when we started the mountain project that we could see how preservation was at higher altitudes, because there would be a chance that preservation was better because it's cooler and drier up there. Because we found all of these caribou bones lying on the surface, we were very optimistic when we came up there. But having now excavated a few test units, we must say that the bone preservation, even at this altitude, is actually rather poor when you get a little bit down to layers, which is a little bit disconcerting because it suggests that your deterioration is actually also happening even around 1,000 meters where we were working. The way we understand the site now and how it's coming alive for us is we probably see small groups of first Norse, later Inuit, moving deep into the hinterland to this particular site, probably in mid or even late August, to stay there for maybe a month. And this is in the time where the caribou would be coming down and start to migrate towards the coast. So of course they are in the rhythm of the migrating caribou and of nature. So they come here and they set up at this site close to the bottleneck and have their main camp, which is the processing plant. So basically this is where everything gets amassed, and they will start to look for the caribou. If it's not immediately there, they will go further inland all the way up to the ice cap, scouting, looking for the caribou, and that's where they have the small overnight sites. You just stay a night or two to move to the next sites, and we find those connected across the landscape. Once you then know where the caribous, and if they start coming towards the main site, you start herding them down, and probably you will have scarers that are helping moving the caribou in the direction where you want them, and then you have kill areas where you have your shooting blinds, either with bow and arrow and later with rifle. Caribou are then brought from those places and back to the site where we were working, where we found those hundreds and hundreds of caribou bones that are all broken up. So they've been splitting all of these bones for marrow while they're up there, suggesting that they're not there for the caribou meat, they're there for the skins, for the sinew, and also for the antler. These are critical products, especially in the Inuit hunting technology. They need this. And that's maybe the reason that you will spend so much time and effort actually going in these places that are so difficult to get to. So maybe you'll spend a month up there processing all of this while you're meeting the rich meat and fat of the caribou and having a good time, I hope. And then you bring back all of these products that you needed for other things to the head of the fjord, where you would have your family set up in large summer camps. And then as the winter came on, you would move out of the fjords back to the coast to live in the seal during the winter. Fieldwork we did this year is actually a beautiful example of how things are planned and then change along the way because of weather and the will of nature, really, which you are always sort of just have to follow up here in Greenland. So we had planned to stay up there for almost 6 days, but the first flight in got cancelled because of a storm, and then we went in. We had 1.5 days of good weather, then turned stormy again, but we made the most of the time we had.